The speaker. All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Nun Vav, Maseches Yevamos.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Morning. So we left off yesterday towards the middle of Nun Hey Beis. Let's say 55% down. Omar Shmuel, and away we go. Omar Shmuel Ha'ara Zo Nashika. So Ha'ara, we talk about Ha'ara in our Mishnah reference to Ha'ara and Gemar Bia. So Ha'ara, right, is the first step of Bia, of relations, of intercourse. So Zo Nashika, that's contact. Mashal Adam Sheminich B'atzbo Al Piv. Right? So it's like a person, he takes his finger and he touches his lips, so that's impossible for it not to sort of separate the lips, separate the flesh. So Nashika, according to Shmuel, is the Tchilas Bia. So Kiyasar Rav Rechana Rav Yechnan, Gemar Bia, what's Gemar Bia b'Shivcha Charuf? Now we mentioned by Shivcha Charuf is a special pasuk that we saw yesterday that says that has to be Shivcha Zer. So what's Gemar Bia by a Shivcha Charufa? Right, by one's maidservant who's married. So Achnas Zatar, that is right. That's the entering of the atara of the crown. That's the penetration of the crown. Now, that's the end. That's Gemar Bia according to that shita. So Gemar Bia b'Shivcha Charuv is Achnas Zatar. So we're still going to see. So Meitzer Rav Sheisha Shikla Zera Eino Chayiv Ela Al Bias Hameru. So Shikla Zera is only Chayiv, right, for Bias Hameru. There's some sort of Bia, right, that could bring around Zera. So my lav mirakid, is it not referring to type of Bia, right, where it is Gemar Bia to all the way complete insertion. Mirak Atara, no, it's just the crown that is even considered to be, so therefore it's not a stira. And Kiyasir Rav Rabbi Yechon Ha'ara Zechnas Atar. So says Rabbi Yechon Ha'ara Tchilas Bia Zechnas Atar. That's the entering, the penetration of the Atara of the crown. Amr Lo, so Amr Le. So we see no, that it's not considered to be Gemar Bia. Rather, Hachnas Zatara is the Ha'ara, is that's the Tchilas Bia. So I'm really I he didn't say this. So right? So he said to him, EU Shakri, oh Ana Shakri. Either he's lying or I'm lying. One of us is wrong. In other words, what is Ha'ara? Is it Hachnas Zatara? Or is that considered to be Gemar Bia? So Kiyas Ravin or Yechon Ha'ara is Hachnas Zatara. So he said, "Beferish Ha'ara, right? The Tchilas Bia is only the entering of the Atara." So Ad Rav Rechana Vadai Pali. So certainly Ad Rav Rechana who says that Hachnas Atara is the self Bia, is Gemar Bia. Certainly argues. Ad Shmuel does he argue on Shmuel? Says, "Lo, maybe not. Maybe it could be that Nashika." All the way through Hachnas Zatara, that is considered to be Ha'ara. That's considered to be Bia. And Kiyas Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Rav Yechon Ha'ara Bia is Hachnas Zatara. That is the penetration of the Atara of the crown. And Gemar Bia Mamsh. And what's Gemar Bia means? Gemar Bia Mamsh. It's complete Bia, complete penetration. And we can turn the page. And Ella Nishika. But something before, right? Hachnasas Atara, right? Is only in the Shiko Patale, right? And therefore one is Pater, that's not even considered to be, that's only the Shiko, that's not considered to be Ha'ara even. And a Patale, the Shmuel. And therefore, that would be Pater, because that's not even Ha'ara. And therefore he argues the Shmuel. So basically there's three Shitas, or there's three steps in terms of as a machlokas as to what ha'ara is, right? Whether it's considered to be just nashika, or just which is contact, or is it hachnas atara, which is the beginning of the penetration, and then there's the Gemar Bia. Is the Gemar Bia the beginning of the penetration, or is it considered to be the complete Maisa Bia? Fine. So that was the machlokas there. Now we said in the Mishnah echad ha'ara. So, reference to the beginning of the Mishnah, the sixth parak, it says whether it's Ha'ara. I'm just looking 1 second. So our Mishnah says whether he does Ma'ara, right, which is the Chilas Bia, we just went through the Machlokes, or Gemar Bia. So my Kana, what does it mean he acquires? So Rab Omar Kana. Rab says he completely acquires one of the Kol. Ushmol Omar like Kana El Devar Parsha. Only he acquires her through matters that are mentioned in the Parsha. What do you mean? Right? In order to inherit the nechasim of the deceased brother, and to pater, she no longer requires yibum. But let's say he was a kohen, right? So she wouldn't go ahead and eat from truma. Let's see what's going on here. Meaning Nisuin, the Divri Akos. What's the machlokes over here from Nisuin? Now there's two parts, as we always mention. Good morning, Yigal. There's two parts of kedushin. There's the erisin, there's the betrothal, right? The first part, right, which we loosely call engagement, right? And this, which is really nothing, right? There's the erisin or kedushin, and then there is what happened? What I missed? And then there's the suin, and then there's the full marriage, the chuppah, the suin. So now mina suin the divya kol achla. If she was married before completely to the brother, and then he died, and then the guy did any sort of bia, right? Everyone agrees with the achla. So habi the achla mikar because she was eating in the beginning. So kipligi, what's his machlokes in Rav and Shmuel? Mina erisin. Let's say she was only betrothed; she only had erisin with the deceased brother. Rav says she now, even though before she was only in arusa. Now we have to go over for a second. Lamaisa, one who does erisin, if he's a kohen, he can feed his wife truma, right? Normally, a woman, she's not a kohen, right? She can't eat truma. If she marries a kohen, comes his wife. She's now married to a kohen. She can eat truma. Now, a woman who is only restes, right, betrothed, right? So she Midaraisa is acquired and she can eat it. But there's a gzeira we don't want to eat because normally a woman who's betrothed lives in her father's house still. Her father is a Yisrael, not a Kohen, and we don't want him to eat the truma. So therefore we say don't do it. Now, so kipli mean erisin. So really mid erisin if he does yibum. So when she was only mereses to the deceased brother, she didn't eat. However, once she does yibum, she can go ahead and eat. So keep looking at it. Rabbi Rachmana bias shogeg kamezid. Because Rav says that since we elevate any sort of bia, even bias shogeg, becomes like kamezid, and therefore she can go ahead and eat truma. She's fully married. When the Torah says, okay, shogeg is like kamezid, that's only to make him like his brother. However, we don't make him stronger than the bond with her. Be a shegeg does not make her stronger than that which she had with the previous husband. Now, it goes to say, obviously, that if she was engaged or betrothed to the deceased brother, and then the guy did yibum, right? The shem mitzvah, he's mechavin for a mitzvah. Obviously, he acquires her completely, even nesuin, right? But we're talking over here that which we elevate. Bias shogeg, right? And something which an unintentional bia, right? He didn't know he wasn't doing the shem mitzvah. He thought it was somebody else. Whatever the case was, scenarios earlier. Well, that was the case of onus. Right? So over here, but shogeg, right? So no, shogeg. He intended to have bia. He just didn't realize it was with his sister-in-law, right? She was, right? He covered her face. Who knows, right? So, but there we don't elevate bias shogeg to say he acquires or acquiring the shmol. The other shmol tamish goes to us. Dama Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel like shabal machil a kol shabal machil yavam. Anything that the husband was feeding her, then the yavam go to machil. A kol shabal machil yavam ain't a machil. However, something that the husband was not feeding her, then the yavam cannot go ahead and feed her. So meisvei as your kasha bas shal bikachash and is arsalakai bikayach. If you have a bas Yisrael, normal bas Yisrael. She was me'ureses, she was betrothed to a regular Kohen. Below he speak l'kohen ta'achin is charish, and then the guy had some sort of accident, became a deaf mute, right? He went crazy, became a deaf mute. So she married him after she had Nesuin after he became a deaf mute. So they got engaged, it was normal, he became a deaf mute, and then he did Nesuin, right? Tough break. Now, below he speak l'kohen ta'achin is charish, eino icheles. She doesn't go ahead and eat because the cheresh, right? Since it's not in midaraisa, you can't cheresh cannot be kaina, so therefore he wouldn't be machal truma. However, mace, if he dies, so he dies. So in other words, he became a deaf mute, and then he did Nisuin, completely married, and then he died. And then she fell to the brother who was also a Cheresh, right? It was in the DNA. He was also a Cheresh, also a Kohen. She can go ahead and eat. Right? She can go ahead and eat truma. Now, before she wasn't able to go over here, you get truma. Over here, the strength, the bond of the yavam, because he's able to be Michael or truma, is stronger than that which is the husband. So, Rav Nicha. This works well according to Rav, because Rav was one who said earlier that if you start off with Erison and then you do Bias Shageg, which is no different, Bias Shageg is the same as the Erison of a Cheresh. So it works well because he can be Machal Truma, El Shmuel, but according to Shmuel, it says he can't be Machal Truma, Kashin. So Machal Shmuel, Emahachi say like this: Lo he speak lekainza adshnis charesh, Eina Chelas. He says Beferish. He was not able to go ahead and marry until it became a Cheresh. Eina Chelas. She does not go ahead and eat Truma. Eina Chelas Truma. Why? But if he married her first, and then he's able to feed her truma, and then he becomes a deaf mute, then she can eat. And on that it says, if he dies, and then he comes to the cheresh, then then she can go ahead and continue eating. Umay bezu. And what does it mean? We say that this is the bond is stronger the yavam than the cheresh, than the baal, the husband. Dilu baal cheresh mikara because we said earlier, if he became a deaf mute and then tried to go ahead and marry her, he wouldn't be able to go ahead and be Machla Truma, Vilo Yavam, but the Yavam, when he was Cheresh Mikara, right, but she felt him and he was already deaf mute, Achla, she can go ahead and eat Truma.
Why can't they eat Cheresh Kohen eat Truma?
He can eat Truma, but his Kinyan is not valid. A person who's a deaf mute does not have the ability, does not have the das to be Kona something. So he can't acquire the woman who's a Bas Yisrael to be Michael, right? To be either the Raisa level to be Michael or Truma. So therefore, she can't eat Truma. But if he was already a Pikeach, and then he had some sort of disease that became a blind, a deaf mute, right?
Yeah, okay.
She can continue eating. That's what we said. Now, Bigadam is a different version. Everyone agrees, both Rav and Shmuel, that if she was only engaged, there was Erison, and then the guy died in Bia Shegeg. So everyone agrees that the Bia Shegeg cannot be Michael Truma if she was widowed from only Erison. Because she was not eating as an Arusa while she was engaged or betrothed. So Kipligi, one of the argument in a suit. The argument in a suit. The argument if she was completely married to the deceased brother, then, and the guy does Bia Shegeg, is he allowed to go ahead and is she allowed to go ahead and continue eating truma? Rav says she can go ahead and eat. Why? Because he acquired her. We said Bia Shogig is just like Bia, and therefore he's able to go ahead and she's able to go ahead and continue eating truma. And Shmuel says no, she can't go ahead and eat truma anymore. All right, this Bia Shogig does not allow her to go ahead and continue eating truma. And Ki Rabbi Rachmana, the Torah says Bia Shogig is okay, right? We learn from the Pesukim Yavam Yavala. In any case, so Ki Rabbi Rachmana Bia Shogig Kamezi Dvarim in Parsha. Only those matters in the Parsha, i.e., to inherit the brother, right? And then she's no longer chayiv to do yibum. But now, when it comes to eating truma, but other matters such as eating truma, if she was a Bas Yisrael and he's a Kohen, she would not be able to. Anything that if the husband was feeding, so if he was already there was already Nesuin, and he's able to feed her truma, the Yavam should be able to be Michael. So Ema Kol Bia Shabal Michael Ba Yavam Michael Ba. Kol Bia Shena Ba Michael Ba Ena Yavam Michael Ba. Any Bia, right, that the Baal is able to feed her, he has to be a full Nesuin. It can't be Bia Shegeg. He can't acquire her B'Shegeg. So therefore, he would not eat her. So too, he would not allow her to eat Truma. So too, this Bia Shegeg would not allow the woman, even though she was previously completely married, she would not be able to continue eating Truma. I may say, we asked earlier, if you have a Bas Yisrael and she was normal and she was engaged or betrothed to a normal, right? He speak, and then he became a deaf mute, and then he did Nesuin, then he cannot eat. she cannot eat truma anymore, or she cannot eat truma.
But they're considered married?
Yes, midrabanan. Yeah. But on the deraisa level, because we don't allow something that she can't eat truma deraisa, and the rabbanan will allow her to eat. But yeah, we are chayshish for that that kinyan. So we said,
Once she has bia with him, she's fully his wife.
100%.
And
But we're talking about BS shogeg over here. The chiddush over here is the BS shogeg is not with the yavam. So it's not a full, the pasuk only elevates it to a bia in the case of Yibum. So the question is, what is it elevated to? Is it like mazid? And therefore, whatever, if BS mazid would allow one to do so to BS shogeg, or do we say, that would be Rav, or do we say that no, it's only certain matters that we elevate the BS shogeg. But however, and then she wasn't able to go ahead and be acquired by him for Nesuan until he became a deaf mute. Then she cannot eat Shuba, mace. But if he dies, this cheresh who married her dies, and she falls to the yavam who's also a deaf mute, then she can be a chelas. Then she can eat. And over here we say the strength of the yavam is greater than that of the baal. So this works well according to Rav, like we answered earlier. Notice the way we answered Shmuel earlier. That we say over there that that really we're talking about a case of where he was a pikach first, and then he was charesh. And in such a case, we say the yavam can go ahead and acquire when, even though it's a bias shogeg, he would acquire it completely and allow her to eat. El the Shmuel, but according to Shmuel, kasha. But according to Shmuel, it's a kasha. So Gemara says, indeed, it's a kasha, because according to Shmuel, Shmuel holds that she would not be able to eat at all from bias shogeg. And over here, it clearly says that if she fell to a cheresh, she would be able to go ahead, and therefore it's a kasha and Shmuel. Taner Rabbanan 2 dots, 80% of the way down. Taner Rabbanan Bas Yisrael Pikachas. So Bas Yisrael, who's normal, she's Arsa L'Kohen Pikach, and she's engaged, right, betrothed to a Kohen who's normal. And then she was not able to go ahead and marry him until he first became a deaf mute, and then they got married. She gotta go ahead and eat truma, right? If she's from a Bas Yisrael. No ben, but if they have a child, then ochelas. Then a woman can eat, right? We said because since the child is a Kohen, right? He's the son of the father, despite the fact the father is a deaf mute. Since the child can go ahead and eat, so therefore the mother is allowed to go ahead and eat also because of the child. Meis habed, but if this child dies, then Rabbi Nassan Aimer Ochelas. Rabbi Nassan says, you know what? You can continue eating. No, once he dies, you're done. So my time to Rabbi Nassan, what's the reason why Rabbi Nassan holds that she can go ahead and continue eating? So I'm a Rabbi since she already was eating. Since you're already eating while the son was alive, so therefore she can continue eating. So I'm really understand if you have a married woman who was a Bas Yisrael and she got married to a Kohen, and then he dies. You say that normally if he dies and she's widowed with no children, she goes back to her father's house and she can no longer eat truma. So why say the same thing there? Since she started eating truma, let her continue. Ella, rather change that. Right? Rather, what you can say is that since he died, right, the Kohen without children, he dies. So therefore, the kedusha of her eating truma also leaves, and therefore she cannot go ahead and eat it. No, and hachinami, so in this case,
doesn't have a boy, but if she has a boy, why would you pull it out from her?
So
there is continuity to Kahuna.
The boy can go ahead and eat, but why can she eat?
She started to eat before her husband died, right? Now she's
so in the case of divorce also, or he dies, she also starts to eat, then he dies. Why can't she continue?
No, she married non-Israel. I mean,
she didn't marry anybody. She didn't marry anybody. She goes back to her father's house. She wasn't remarried, but he died. Right, so the Gemara says, since he died, is no longer. So what's the svara? You can't just say the svara is since we allowed her to eat before, she can continue, because it doesn't work by a woman who's widowed without children. So Allah Amarav Yosef. Rather, what was the svara according to Rab Nassan? Rab Nassan Nasui Cheresh Ma'achlim B'Truma. One who goes ahead and marries a cheresh, we can go ahead and feed them truma of legazrin and nesui cheresh atu kedushay cheresh. And we say that a nesua really can go ahead and eat. She can eat truma. She can eat truma, even though right? He's a cheresh. Even though he's a deaf mute, she can go ahead and eat truma there. And we're not guys there in the sui cheresh, the marriage of a cheresh, to kedusha cheresh because of the kedusha of cheresh. Because right, we say that really normally in a case we say you have to wait for eris for the suin, right? And therefore we don't allow you to eat an erisin, right? And then the suin, or we say that you can't eat there, but you can't eat an erisin because you might, not go ahead and live in the father's house. But in the case of a cheresh, so we say he can be meichel truma, right? And we're not guys there, so therefore a cheresh can be meichel, can go ahead, and deaf mute can go ahead and feed her truma. In the case of once they're completely married, and we're not, we don't make a gezerah of a case when she was only engaged. Now, Amar le Abaye, that's the case. No lo ben lamali. So what does that have to do with the son? Right? You just said the reason why she can eat, even because he was a deaf mute, right? And had a kid, and then she can eat truma. Even if he doesn't have a kid, you just said a deaf mute with the suin, she can go ahead and eat truma. So Mishum the Rabbanan, because we want to give the case of the Rabbanan, because the Rabbanan say Eino Chelas. Once the son dies, she's no longer able to eat because she was only able to eat because of the son. But Rab Nassan would say she's always allowed to eat if he's a deaf mute, if there's the suin. So I believe the Rab Nassan alayo bereisha. So why isn't Rab Nassan arguing the Reisha? Why do you say no then only then a chelas? Right? So that's not the Reisha. So Shavik Rabbanan Adam Simon Mosai v'Hadar Palik. No, because we want to say the complete words of the Rabbanan, and then Rab Nassan will come in after the Rabbanan finish and say it. The Palik Alayo. Ayi that's the case. Lisni Meis Haben Eino Chelas. And Rab Nassan Aimer Chelas. If that's the case, just say if the son dies, right? Eino Chelas. Right, then she can no longer eat. Rab Nassan says, in other words, why do you go to Rab Nassan first and then Chachamim? If you want to finish a sheet of Chachamim, you should have done all the Chachamim and then Rab Nassan completely afterwards. So kasha. Yeah, you're Enochanami right. Fine. And then we said in the Mishnah, one who was ba, right, and all the arayas, right? We said right? We say all those cases. Whether it's Ma'ara or Gemar Bia or Bia Shlokadarka. So Amar Rav Amram. So Hamils Amar Rav Sheshis. Rav Sheshis told us the matter, right? Van Hiru, turn the page, right? And it turns out, right, we're able to sort of see this chiddush that Rav Sheshis says from our Mishnah. And what did he say? Eishes Yisrael, right? We're going to get towards the matter. I'm not going to turn the page. Yeah, I'm going to do the Mishnah and a little bit further, but not completely about maybe 4 or 5 lines from the bottom. Anyway, Mr. Shem. So we say, Eishes Yisrael Shenensa. Have a wonderful day. Eishes Yisrael Shenensa. Good, right? So what do Rav Sheshes say? So if you have Eishes Yisrael Shenensa, that she was violated, right? She was raped, right? Afal Pisha Materas Labala. Even though she's with her husband, Psula Lakahuna. She can no longer marry a Kohen. Right, that she became widowed. She wants to go ahead and marry Cohen. She's puzzled from Kuna because of she's considered to be we'll soon see a zona. The Tanatuna and similar with them. So too we said all the types of bia, whether it's b'shegig, b'mezi, b'onis of ratzon. We say poslas. My v'chein. What does it mean v'chein? My lav lo shna b'shegig, lo shna b'mezid, lo shna b'onis, lo shna b'ratzon. Viktani pasla, right? So that what she says, right? So too all the rise in Torah. What do you mean? Does not mean even something which is done b'ones, right? Something which is violated against her will, right? And it says over there, it passes her. So you see that she was violated, it passes her. So the verse says, lo, my v'chein. What does it mean? V'chein is talking about ha'ara. It's talking about ha'ara. It means if ha'ara, a woman does ha'ara willingly, which is tchilas bia, then that passes her. So the verse says, ha'ara, demand. Who are we talking about ha'ara? Elam and Darayas. If we're talking about ha'ara, Darayas, and let's say Eishes is Mazana. So the name of Darayas, Yafinan Miyavama. Are you telling me that Arayas didn't from Yavama? Adarabba Fakir, we learned earlier, Yavama Yafim Arayas. By Arayas, it says ha'ara, we learned Yavama from there. Dika Araba Arayas Kasif is rather the halacha of ha'ara that it refers to it refers to Bia is learned from Arayas, and the Yibum we learned from there. So Elamai v'chein. Maybe what does v'chein mean? Ashalei kadarka. Maybe it means that shalok kadarka. That if a woman has bia shalok kadarka, it's just like she has bia, right, in the natural way, and therefore that would pass her. So the Arayas, so the Arayas. Adarabba, Ika Mishkava Isha Barayas Kasi. Rather, you can't say that because we know that Bia Shloy Kedarka is just like Bia in the case of Arayas. And we don't learn. We don't learn Arayas from Yibum. We learn Yibum from Arayas. Elamai v'chein. Otherwise, main Shloy Kedarka the Chayvi Lavin. A case of, let's say Chayvi Lavin, let's say a man of the Kohen Gadol, right over there. If it's Shloy Kedarka, then or Kedarka, then even a Chayvi Lavin. Some Rava, Eishes Kohen Shenensa, fine. And Amar Rava, Eishes Kohen Shenensa. If you have Eishes Kohen who was violated, and then the husband stays with her. Now we know the case of the Eishes Kohen, if she was raped, she really has to divorce her husband. So if he stays Shenensa, he gets malchus for violating the pasuk of taking a zona. She's considered to be a zona. Mishum zona mishum tuma lo, but not because of tuma, right? The pasuk says, right, a person should not go ahead and take back his wife. Asher hu tuma, right? She became contaminated. She became tame, right? Even though it was against her will, she still said tuma. So only malchus because of zona and not because of tuma. So mishum tuma lo. So one says no, ema af mishum zona. Some say no, even because of zona. So Mesa Rabbi Zeir Rabbi Hilan is pasa. So I ask the question, says that she was not forced asura. Right? If a woman was violated, she's married to a Yisrael, and she was with another man, but she was forced, right? It says over there, if she wasn't forced, then she's usher. Okay? In other words, she was willingly adulterous. Mashma, that if she was forced, she's mutter, right? Asura, pasa, but if she was forced, then mutaris. The yesh lechateres, and there's another case. Alpha bishan is pasa asura. That even if she was forced, still asur. What's that? Eishes Kohen. That's an Eishes Kohen. But this over here is only an asay. In other words, we see over here it says if she wasn't forced, then she's asur. She was forced, it's mutter. So no, it's only a chavi asay. So why do you get malchus for an asay? So Marabba hakol ayu bichlal zona. Really, if she was mizana at all for any reason, she's in the category of zona, which will get malchus. And when the pasuk specifically says Gabesh Yisrael, it says Ba'esh Yisrael, if she wasn't forced, then she's asur. But if she was forced, then it's muteris. So that was only referring to an Eishes Yisrael. Nechlal, Eishes Kohen, but nevertheless, Eishes Kohen still stays in the same place, and therefore the pasuk is called a zona, and there's only a special leniency when it comes to an Eishes Yisrael. But if a woman was an Eishes Kohen, if she had to be with another man, whether forced or not, she would be usher, and that would be a violation that would include malchus. You could dive into a different version, very similar. I'm a rabbi, Eishes Kohen Shenensa, Eishes Kohen. That was Shenensa. Baila like Allah Mishum Tuma. Right? So Eishes Kohen says she was violated, so her husband is like Allah Mishum Tuma. So Gemara says Mishum Tuma, Mishum Zona, only because he took a woman who was contaminated, but not she was a Zona. Doesn't make a difference.
She was screaming. Eishes Kohen wasn't screaming.
Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference. Alma.
But the Torah says,
but not by Eishes Kohen. Only by Eishes Yisrael, not Eishes Kohen. Right. So Mishum Zona law. So he's not doesn't get malchus as Zona. So Alma ba'oines like Karin and Bei Zona. We see that one according to this, you tell me that by oines, by a person's a woman is violated, she's not called a Zona. So Mesa Reb Zeir he knows pasa asura. His pas materis. But Reb Zeir asked if she wasn't forced, then she's asur mashma that if she was forced materis v'yishachal cheres. And there's another case sha'al bishin is pasa that even though she was forced, nevertheless she's still asura. Yeah, Beis Zuzah Eishes Kohen. That's Eishes Kohen. And something a lav that we only confer from a to do commandment is only a chayvi asay, and one would not get malchus. Really, everybody was in part of the pasuk of that which she was tmeya, i.e., she was with another man. But however, the specific pasuk says it's only by gabe Eishes Yisrael. Right? If she wasn't forced, then she's asur. But if she was forced, then muteris. Right? Then she was mutter. Mechlal, the Eishes Kohen, but the Eishes Kohen was not that pasuk not talking about it all. So therefore, a woman was a zona, right? Whether or not she was violated against her will or for her will, and the only special pasuk of she wasn't forced, then she's tameh. But if she was forced, then she's not. That was only referring to Eishes Yisrael. Fine. Now, I feel bad leaving a little early. All All right, we'll stop here. We'll stop here. So tomorrow, this is continuation. All right, everyone have.
All right.